Hello and welcome to episode 90 of Communicast, the podcast dedicated to enhancing communication skills. I'm your host, Scott D'Amico, president of Communispond. Today I'm joined by Corine La Font, a communication strategist, author, podcaster, and consultant based in the Caribbean. In this conversation, Corine shares her fascinating journey, and we dive into the transformative power of authentic communication. We discuss everything from the hidden power of listening and how to read between the lines of what's not being said to what it really means to show up authentically in both personal and professional spaces. Let's dive in. Corine, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I've been looking forward to this for a long time, Scott.
Glad we are finally able to connect and do it. So before we get started and too far into this, why don't you tell the listeners just a little bit about you, your career journey, and the work that you're doing today?
The work that I'm doing today, having fun. I'm living in the Caribbean, Trinidad and Tobago. That's the life I'm living. So I'm a communication specialist and consultant. I am a fellow podcaster, just like Scott here. I'm a publisher as well, an author. So I publish people's books on Amazon, etc. And again, I'm based in the Caribbean. I know you're jealous right now. Yes, you should be. It's all green outside, no snow. Notice the clothes I'm wearing, very comfy and light.
Yes, we're finally getting into spring here and things are coming back to life. But yeah, definitely, I always enjoy getting down into the Caribbean. I will be down there in about a month or so for some much needed vacation time. So very much looking forward to it.
Scott, give me a call. Give me a call.
Perfect. So, what brought you to the line of work that you're doing today, really focusing in on the consulting, the podcasting, communication specialist, things like that?
Everything in my life has led me to this. I had no control. I was just led here. I come from let's put it, a creative background. I used to teach, and I used to teach art in school. And I've sold works in galleries, etc. And I'm just naturally a creative person. I never knew about public relations or even communications back in the day. This is a relatively new field. I would call it new, that's really taking off. Everywhere I turn, I'm seeing somebody or a corporation is looking for communication specialist, communications officer, communications consultant. They realize the need for it. I think they probably were depending on HR or some other person to do it in some way or form, but now they're realizing the need for the specialty. And so I lived in Jamaica for 21 years of my life. I came back home to Trinidad in 2017 officially. I've been here since then. But I entered into the world of publishing, when was it? 2010. That was around the time ebooks and stuff were also coming about, pioneering. And so I went into that industry. It just worked for me. I attended a virtual summit. A lot of people might think back in 2010, remote is a new term coming about since the pandemic in 2020. But I've been working online since 2003. So this is something that I'm accustomed to. COVID didn't make me become remote. I was working remote from before. And so I was looking for an opportunity for me to work for myself, to have an online business, to have that flexibility, to be my own boss, to make money with all kind of currencies, you name it. I wanted that. That was my vision and my life. And so I entered into publishing. I attended the virtual summit with an association in the United States, and I was blown away. And from the time I heard one of the speakers, her name is Jan King, she's passed now, but fabulous woman. And from the time I heard her, something just clicked. And I just felt immediately, I just felt a connection with it. And I was like, I could do this. Even though I knew the industry was new, ebooks and stuff, but she was coming from a traditional publisher sort of experience. But she was bringing forth the whole idea of ebooks as well. So she evolved her business. And when I heard her speak, I was like, yeah, I'm going to do this. And so that has been keeping me afloat. When I started, even to this day, I still have clients from back then that still reach out to me for services. They're not going anywhere else. They're stuck with me. And I love them, you know, and they refer me to others. And so the publishing led into writing for the Jamaica Gleaner, which is a major daily newspaper in Jamaica. Again, that was a calling. I don't know. I just got this eagerness, this feeling to write for the newspaper. I did that. And while I was doing that, given my background in publishing, I decided, you know, why not write a book? You know, and I did that initial test of a book about book marketing. And so I put it out there. It became, I think, #2 or #1 on Amazon for a little time. I never pushed it. I just left it. It got promoted on radio in Jamaica. It allowed me to get so many opportunities. Writing for the Jamaica Gleaner allowed me to get on TV. Television Jamaica actually called me. I just opened up my email one day and they said, Corine, could you come on TV in the next few days? I was like, what the hell? That's how that's how these things work. And that was my second article. Can you imagine? And there are people waiting for years to get an opportunity to even be in the newspaper, and secondly, to be called on TV. And that was, you know, my second article. And by my fifth article, they called me back again. I was like, okay, then something is going on here. You know, what industry, what space you're in, you are touching people's lives. And so I just evolved into this space. I love it. Communications is an area that it is never boring. You do something a minute ago, it is something else the next minute after, and you just have to roll with it. And I've always wanted to be in a space, in a career that allowed for that lack of monotony. You know, I want my brain to be clicking all the time. I want to be able to think on my feet or not think at all, you know, and be able to make decisions and work with a team and try to figure things out, you know, and lose sleep sometimes over it because I'm up all 2, 3 o'clock in the morning just with ideas flowing. I'm the type of person that while I'm sleeping, my brain is still active, planning and strategizing.
It's so cool just to hear. I could hear the passion in your voice for the work that you do, from publishing to authoring to writing in the news and working with organizations on their communications plans and strategies, right? As you mentioned, for companies, whether it's an internal communication going out to employees or external communications from that PR front, it is important to get those communications right and have a plan put out so it's not just knee-jerk types of communications. And
that's right.
As I think through that career journey, probably lots of opportunities to engage with different people and have exposure to different types of communication skills.
That's right.
So when you hear that somebody's a great communicator, everyone has a different vision of this, but when you hear that somebody's a great communicator, what comes to mind for you?
Somebody who's a great listener. That's the main skill, because you can have somebody who talks a lot, but they're not listening. You miss everything. And even I will use our example here. I was talking a lot, but you just stayed quiet. And that is key in any relationship, because you cannot think what I'm thinking. You should not anticipate what I'm about to say or predict what I'm about to say and decide that you're going to put forward a suggestion or advice, give me advice, when that's not the direction I'm going. And then you have to allow people to vent, because most of the times, if not all the time, Scott, the words that are coming out of people's mouths is not really what they're saying. They are talking, but there's a lot more going on. And you have to watch your body language, you have to watch your, you know, everything. Because you're picking up just from me talking, you sense my passion, you sense my authenticity, you sense my honesty about it. You know, I'm not making up or putting fluff or anything. But there are people who, when you talk to them, you could tell something is off, it's not making sense, it's not adding up. You know, just like how somebody will say words and actions have to match. The body language is part of the actions. The words are saying one thing, but the body isn't matching up with that. And then when you watch somebody consistently, you know, you have to observe over time, it's just not making sense. So I would say, you know, for communications, it's about listening, paying attention. And listening is not only with your ears, you listen with your energy. Energy is extremely important. You not only listen with your ears, because obviously people think, okay, we were taught we have ears, you listen with your ears. No, you listen with your ears, yes, but you listen with your energy. You listen with your own experience. You listen with your eyes. Okay, you observe, you listen with your eyes, and you listen with your intuition. Your intuition is going to be telling you, something is wrong or something is right or whatever it may be. And you follow that and you use all of that to make an informed decision. So listening.
Absolutely love it. And you nailed it, right? You listen with your ears, you listen with your eyes, you listen with your past experiences, all the different things that you hit on. That is so important, especially, for me, the visual component, because if your microphone had been muted for the past, I don't know how long we've been talking, 10 or so minutes, I would still be able to infer a lot about your energy, your tone, how you were feeling about things just by watching your facial expressions, your
Awesome.
gestures. So it's important. Listen with the eyes, listen with the ears. And one of the other things that you mentioned is important is sometimes the most important thing being said is what's not being said.
Exactly.
So listening to what they're saying, but okay, thinking, what aren't they saying? And then is there that match between what they're saying and how they look when they're saying it? Like if you ask somebody, hey, how's it going? They're like, great. The difference between, hey, how you going? Oh, I'm great. Fantastic.
Yeah.
The tone, the energy, the body language, you're slumped over, you're sitting up, you're gesturing, makes a big difference. And listening is that foundational communication skill that I think helps inform everything else that we do from a communication standpoint.
Well, let me jump in here for a second. When you were talking, two people came to mind that I'm sure people could relate to, Robin Williams and Twitch. You know, these people were there to make us happy. I mean, we watched Robin Williams' movie. Everything about him was comedic. We love the man. And Twitch was working with Ellen. I mean, the man is into dance and he made people smile. He brought love to the place. And look at what happened. Nobody to this day could figure out what happened with those two beautiful individuals. Nobody, because their actions and their words were just two totally different things. And sometimes, Scott, when people are saying, I'm fine, like you use that example, I'm fine. Don't just accept it as it is. I'm fine, because that is the automatic response. I'm fine. I'm good. I'm great. That is the automatic response. But you have to, as I said, it's listening with a whole lot of other aspects of you and watching over time. You can't just take the person's word for it. It just not make sense. And you see that intuition, you feel it move. Somebody will say, I'm fine, but you know deep down, that's not sounding right. You don't push them, you don't shove them, because they're going to start clamming up even further. But you stay close. You stay close and you observe. So I use those two examples also because, we're dealing with humans. We're not dealing with AI here. We're not dealing with bots. We're not dealing with robots. We're dealing with humans. And they're a little bit more complicated to figure out than if you were using of technology,
And that's why listening is so important, in listening over time and not just, okay, I'm going to listen to this one conversation today because I think it's important. As you listen to people over time, you're going to notice changes in behavior, changes in mannerisms, changes in what they're talking about, which I think really is important to help people, and then also really just to understand people where they're at so that you can move things forward.
Of course.
Corine, as you think about people in the workplace today, and it's changed from 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, right? There's things that happen in the world, there's technologies that come out that really change the way that we work. As you think about folks in the workplace today, what are some of the key communication skills that either maybe are very much lacking or that are necessary to help people thrive in their career?
Oh, that's a heavy question. I think people need to learn to, okay, I'm hearing that question and I'm visualizing a workplace. And for me, it is about understanding the environment that you want to work in that could flourish or feed that career if you want to get into that sort of industry. And you have to look at a number of things. The most immediate thing, because you mightn't want to go in like a mystery shopper and ask questions, but maybe that is something you should do. Just walk into the company or organization and just feel things out. Sit down in the lobby and just observe. Is this a place? And this is good for persons who are looking for jobs and that type of thing, or looking to enter in the industry. Just feel things out. Probably try finding out about a service. You're not really in need of the service, but you kind of want to walk through the different steps to see how you're being treated, how you're being spoken to, or just make a call, or just use a chat, you know, online, and figure out what kind of service am I getting here. I've experienced chats which were not very friendly at all, you know, in places that's supposed to be friendly. And that is giving you an indication of they're very abrupt. They're not taking the time. It's about just meeting a clock, you know, sort of a thing, a timer, because when they're there in the background, they have to go through a certain number of calls or else they will not be paid a particular amount. So you kind of do your own little investigation. And then, of course, you work on yourself, because it cannot be just externally. You know, you're looking at what others are doing. You have to work on yourself. What is the type of person I want to be? Because you could be that person behind that desk or behind that system dealing with persons like yourself. So what sort of service do you want to provide? What sort of professional relationship do you want to distinguish yourself to be? And you work on that, because that is what I do every day. In my interactions with people, I replay it. You know, I replay it. It may not be at the end of the day. Sometimes I replay it while I'm having lunch, drinking a cup of tea, you know, and I'm like, that conversation could have gone this way or that way. You can't go and change it, but you can change how you respond to the next person that you talk, or how you deal with the next person. And it's all about preparedness as well. So like recently, I just came out of a meeting. I make sure I was as best prepared as I can, you know, and I mean, we can't cover everything, and just give yourself grace. You know, that's what I say to people. You know, don't beat up yourself on what you didn't ask, what you didn't say. I could look back at this interview and say, you know, I could have said this. I should have said that. How is that going to help me? It's not. I said what I have to say at this particular point in time, what came to me. Of course, there could be always something that we could do better, but it makes no sense beating up on yourself. Give yourself grace. Be thankful for what you said at the moment, and just let go and move on.
So if I understand correctly, folks that are, if you're thinking about going to work at an organization, or you're considering a particular industry or job role, really being prepared and doing your homework and understanding, from my perspective, read the job description very carefully, because there are going to be keywords in that job that are going to send signals out about the culture, positive or negative, on how you might interpret it. Look at their social media posts.
Of
Look through their
course.
LinkedIn feed. Look at employees' profiles, see what they
Of
say about the
course.
company. Look at how people recommend each other at that company. There's so much information out there that you can get about a particular job, a particular industry, that's going to help inform, how do I need to show up here? What skills
Yeah.
will I need to be successful in this particular role, this particular company, this particular industry? What don't I have? How do I grow those skills? And then how do I prepare if I'm going in to meet with you for an interview? I've done this research, and I'm going to start to understand these are the 2 or 3 skills that are likely going to be most important.
Let me just jump in here. The reason why I never mention those, because those are the obvious things that people are going to do. But we know what social media does. Highlights all the nice things. And even if you check people's profiles, especially on LinkedIn, some of them are not even posting on LinkedIn. Some of these employees, they don't want to have a social, they don't, even that is a message. They don't want to be associated with the company. You know, but for
That's
those
a
who may
point of
have,
what's not being said,
what's
right?
not there,
Yes.
that is a message in itself, that you don't feel attached to the company or feeling good about it to even say, hey, I'm attached to Scott and Associates. You know, you don't even want to. You don't want to wear the logo shirt. You don't want to be seen with it. That in itself is a message. But those are the obvious places people are going to check. Check the profiles, check the social media. But those things tend, besides of what is not telling you, people only put forward the good things. This is why I went straight to actually being like a mystery shopper. Don't hide behind the screen. You take up your whole self and go into that company. Nobody needs to know you're applying for the job. Nobody. You are coming in as a customer, because we are both an internal and an external customer. And you come in and decide. Pretend you are here for a service and just observe and see, is this a place I really want to go? because you get to feel the energy of the place when you actually are in there, as opposed to watching social media profiles where people could make up anything or probably nothing, and you get an impression, so that might be a good first start. But if you really want to take it up a notch and really want to know what's going on, become a mystery shopper and go in there and pretend you're a customer, or maybe be a customer and see what it feels like.
Yeah, and I'm sure there are people that are customers of organizations that have had such great experience as a customer. They're like, wow, I would love to actually work at this place.
Yeah.
Or I know I've had this scenario where I've had such a terrible experience with an organization. I'm like, oof, I cannot imagine what it would be like to work at a place like that. So I think getting that perspective, it's a really unique way to figure out what might it be like here and what skills would I need if I was in that environment.
Yeah.
If you think about your career journey and the success that you've had, if I were to hold you to say, what's the key skill, right? The number one skill that has helped you get to where you are today from a communications perspective, what would you say that skill would be?
I don't know if you would consider it a skill, but I would say authenticity, just being yourself. In this industry, especially communications, I can't speak about anything else. I've observed, again, there's that word, I've observed people pretending to be other people, trying to speak like other people, trying to dress like other people, trying to walk like other people. It comes like one of those celebrities and you start taking on their persona. It's not yours, but you want to be like them because you think they are out there, people are seeing them, they're recognized and respected, and so you take on their persona. It doesn't work for you. You cannot sustain that. Be authentic. People want to see the real you. People want to meet you, not me as Scott, not me as Halle Berry, not me as whoever else. They want to meet me because the real you can actually walk into that organization and change the entire culture and customer experience. All different class, culture, color, size, shape, you have to be able to work with everyone. It doesn't matter. So authenticity is what I would say. Be you. That's all it takes. Be you.
Authenticity for me really is a combination of a number of things. It may not be, as you said, a particular skill. It's a combination of things happening. And when I think of authenticity, there's a few components. To me, there's alignment, consistency, and duration. So if I wanted people really feel that they're getting the authentic me, there's going to be that alignment between what I say, how I look when I'm saying it. I'm not trying to be fake about something.
Yeah.
I'm consistently doing that. And
right.
I'm consistently doing that over a long period of time. So if somebody met me in January, then they met me again in June and again in December, they're seeing that consistency and the alignment over and over again. And that's where you will be able to sniff out somebody that's inauthentic. Every time you see them, they're going to be acting a little bit different, right? You're going to get a different version of them, so to speak.
Yeah. You know how I know that I am authentic? When people say to me, Corine, why don't you change? Corine, why don't you change? I'm like, why? Why? So they met me like they know me from childhood, went to school with me, go through university, whatever. They're like, why don't you change? I might have gotten a little bit worse in the sense of more of me coming out. But I'm still the same. You meet me at a restaurant, I'm the same. You meet me in the airport, I'm the same. You meet me with high profile people, I'm the same. I'm not changing. So I am consistent over that long period of time. That explanation that you give is spot on.
And as you think about, as you mentioned, you've had this authenticity, this consistency over time. You change a little bit, learn new skills, pick things up here or there, but you are you. But if you think of, say, throughout your life, who has been somebody that perhaps had an influence on your communication style? So the way you communicate today, I think everyone has their own unique style when it comes to how they communicate. Who's somebody that perhaps had an influence on that? Maybe it was just something little that they did that you picked up and put it in your tool bag, so to speak, and incorporated it into you?
I can't really pinpoint any specific person. I remember as a younger person, there was my neighbor, and this was the first time that I ever heard of a public relations officer. And she's pretty, very pretty to this day. And I still didn't know what it was. I just looked at her and I was like, wow, this seems to be a sort of elevated, very status quo, very tight sort of industry that you have to carry yourself in a particular way. And now that I talk it out, I probably felt that I could fit into that because I was always different. And I remember growing up as a child in my mother's house, I always spoke differently. My English was always differently. My skills were always different. And so people would come to me for help to write things from since very young. I helped my mother and all of that with all her reports, investigative reports, and just the way I speak. So even to this day, when people come to me and say, "Oh, you speak like that. Did you, are you from Trinidad?" They don't even think I'm from Trinidad. They think I'm British or something, because of how I speak. And I'm like, no, I've been speaking like this as a child. Even though I lived in Jamaica, and yes, there might be a blend of accent, but to me, I'm hearing myself. I'm not hearing what they're hearing, but this is what I'm accustomed to. So when I saw her, she just had this glow. She had this aura about her that I guess was attractive. And I was like, I didn't realize. It's funny when you think of something and you see it, you actually put out something into the universe. And you actually, this is why I tell you at the beginning of our interview, I didn't choose necessarily to go down this road. Everything in my life led me down this road. Everything. Why didn't I become a doctor? Well, I guess I'm afraid of blood, yeah. But why didn't
That might be tough.
Yeah, it was meant for me to be a lawyer. I could tell you that. My family wanted me to be a lawyer, but when I thought about that, I would have to defend criminals. If I went into criminal law, I would probably murder them more than anything else. I just couldn't. And then I was supposed to go into social work. Those were the intentions in their mind, but then I couldn't deal with having to listen to people and their issues and not do something about it, So I steered away from those things, I prefer this particular industry where I can make a change. I can make an impact. I can still talk to people. I guess the social work is coming in. The legal is still coming in, because I have to consider all of that. But it's a little bit safer for me in going down this particular path. Yeah. And I don't have to operate on anybody, at least not yet.
Not yet. Yeah. There's always hold out hope for the future. You never know.
Yes, not yet.
Corine, as we are wrapping up here, what piece of closing advice would you have to share with folks listening to this, really just in general, around the importance of the skills that we talked about today and the impact it can have not only on their career, but their entire life?
Well, it all depends because there are two sides to this story, or some people say there are three sides. So you have the personal side, you have the professional side, and then you have your side. You make the choice. So if you're in personal relationships, just be aware of yourself, learn to understand who you are. I tell people take the time to learn you, because to be able to relate to somebody else, you have to understand and get to know yourself, what your values are. You shouldn't be just taking on corporate values and think it's yours. That's corporate values. You have your own values and standards, and especially boundaries. So get to understand, spend time with you, love on you, in order to be able to give love to somebody else. I'm all about love. Everything I do is about love. If I find that what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling that sort of way that is emanating anger or anxiety, I pull back and wait until it's the right time to be able to respond or say something, in whichever way to somebody, whether personally or professionally. And if you're entering in the industry on a professional level, like we mentioned before, take the time to understand if this is really a good match for you. Do the mystery shopping kind of experience I suggested, and just observe, and observe and listen. Like I said, make sure that you have very good listening skills. Listening takes a lot of strength and will to hold back that mouth from saying something. You have to be able to keep that mouth shut for the entire duration that person speaks without having to say something. Find a way, whether you tap your fingers or something without it being seen, to kind of keep yourself calm, or drink a cup of tea to keep yourself busy or drink water while you're listening to the person. Find a way to stop yourself from trying to interrupt, because consider, if somebody were to interrupt you, how would you feel? And in terms of the third aspect, because I said it's either yours, the one side, two side, or the third side, is you make that decision. It's really up to you. Choose what's best for you and just follow that. And even if you're not sure, just go with the flow. You will eventually find what's right for you.
Wholeheartedly agree that holding back during communications is very challenging. And I would say it's a tremendous skill to work on. If you find yourself that you are somebody that interrupts other people as they're talking, or you may not even fully interrupt, but you're one of those people that are leaning forward and like you're ready to jump out of your skin because you can't wait to talk. That's something to work on. So I encourage people, record your interactions. So if you're doing a Zoom meeting and this is a skill you want to work on, ask your colleague or whoever it is it okay if I record this? I'm just working on some of my communication skills. You'll be able to see if you are doing those things. You're like, there's a lot of physical mannerisms that people have that they're trying to hold back the speaking. And when you're doing that, you're not fully listening. I think that's definitely one thing you can do, is really start to record. Preparing definitely helps. The more prepared you are for a conversation, it's going to help you on the listening side. So that's definitely a key thing to do. But I agree, realizing that it's a problem is the first step, and then taking steps to correct it is important after that. Corine, thank you so much for joining me today. Really enjoyed our conversation. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Same to you, Scott. All the best.
Take care. Special thanks again to my guest, Corine La Font. I hope you were as inspired as I was by her passion, her journey, and her powerful take on communication as an act of listening, intuition, and caring. As we wrap up, remember that mastering communication is a continuous journey. Make sure to stay connected with Communicast by subscribing so you can benefit from conversations with future guests. If you found value in today's episode, I'd be grateful for your support. Leaving a rating or review is a fantastic way to let us know the impact this show has had on you. Thanks, and have a great day.